and welcome back to Talk Dirty to Me. Today we have Anthony and Zachary on. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm a 40-plus year veteran in the waste industry. Grew up in it when I was about 6, 7 years old. Rode the back of the truck when I was 10. Then as I got older, started my first curbside recycling service when I was 16 with a back of a trunk of a, well, I actually started out with a moped. Then I grew up into a car, did it out of a car. That got to be where it was a hassle, so I got a pickup. Grew it from like 20 stops to 150 stops, and I had 50 commercial stops because my mom and dad were in the garbage business, so it kind of worked out. So then the competitor that was in town was causing problems with my mom and dad, so I decided to get in the garbage business and go against him. So I would go around and took about 10, 15 garbage stops from him. And then we would, the guy's no longer around, but this will kind of transition into the whole thing. But yeah, we used to get in almost fist fights out on the street. We would, I go take his cardboard stops. He'd pull up in front of my garbage truck I was picking up cardboard at, and it'd be one of his stops because the customer didn't want him, and he'd get all mad at me. And then I would go and take 2 more stops of his, and then he'd come find me, and then he'd run his mouth at the bar, and so he's gonna kick my ass. You know, so I made it hard on him. When we were in business, I made it hard on him. I used to go around on holiday weeks when the garbage cans would be next to his, and I'd be on the back of the truck, and I'd kick his cans over. I took a couple of his cans and turned them upside down with a lid because he thought they were already picked up, and then I got wind that he got pissed off because when he lifted the can up, the garbage would fall out on the ground as he's lifting it up. And then, we used to yell at each other. We'd go by. We'd flip each other off, and so then when 95, graduated from high school. 95, sold out the waste management, I sold the waste management, and then I worked there, and then that's when that guy that we didn't get along with actually got bought out, and we worked together, and then of course he passed away 2 years ago, and we actually made amends and got along, and so I've been doing this a long time.
Sounds pretty good. So you had your own little individual trash war going on the entire time, huh?
Yeah, well, so his dad ran the landfill compactor, and his sister ran the gate. So she was picking on my dad and, charging us for stupid stuff that wasn't supposed to be charged. And she knew where all our construction containers were. And so finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to play dirty. I'm going to go through his load when he dumps next to ours. And I found like a whole load out of county garbage. So we contacted the county officials, and then I brought the proof up. And then I went over and followed him around in another county. And then I got a hold of the paper, and we put it in the paper. I got articles of that to this day. And that's when that really got heated because, he'd follow me, and him and I would just go at it. I mean, we'd start talking crap to each other, damn near fist fight on the street over garbage. Just, he didn't like us, and we didn't like him, and we made it known, too. People knew it, and I go in and undercut his accounts just on purpose, just to get back at him, and that would piss him off because then he would try to, go after us, but we knew enough people in town that they didn't like him because of the way he was, so. But yeah, obviously you can't do that type of stuff anymore. Not what I was doing.
Oh, no.
I used to take the waste management compactor boxes back then because we didn't like them. And we used to undo the turnbuckles on them, so that way when the compactor started packing trash, they'd push them out, and then they'd have to drive 55 miles one way to bring a roll-off down to push it back.
Man, oh man.
I was dirty back then. I was a dirty competitor.
And that was like, 20 years ago?
Oh, God, this was back in the 90s.
Yeah, wow.
That's how far back, before I went to work for Burgundy. We didn't like Burgundy.
Yeah, if we tried to pull any of that kind of crap with our company, we'd be shit-canned immediately. So
no, it's to do that nowadays. It's not. It's a different. You got cameras now, and you got where you can get taken to jail for stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yep.
Got accused for burning some dumpsters, and I never burned anybody's dumpster, but yeah, I got accused of that. And then I went in, and this commercial account set up. We got the whole block, and here it was the competitor's wife that was working in there, and she went and told his dad at the landfill, and his dad pulled me up on the compactor and said, "What are you doing telling everybody you got the whole town?" I says, "Well, we do. We got majority of what you guys don't have." And I says, "If you keep harassing me, I'm going to go out and take a couple more today from you." He didn't like that, so. But I didn't give a shit back then. I was young, and I was at a competitive edge, and that's the way I was. I had the mentality where if you mess with us, we're going to get you.
Now, me and Shawn have always joked around about friendly competition, about who's a better person picking up presidential when we're doing it. And talking about having our own trash wars, like we're going to go out there and freaking fight with our arms from the ASL trucks, But I mean, you actually lived it, Come on now.
There's guys that actually do that, actually compete with each other. Like, I'm the better driver than you. We see that all the time on Facebook.
We do too.
On Facebook.
Yeah. So, Zach, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so take two. So my name's Zach. So I grew up in Southern Oregon. Unlike Anthony, I didn't grow up in the waste industry. I didn't have any family members that were in the waste industry, but I've always been fascinated by garbage trucks. I grew up in an apartment complex for the formative years of my life, and we had a front loader that came and picked up. The mechanics of how the truck worked always fascinated me. So. I can remember we moved into a house, and I would always go around the neighborhood during the summertime, and I'd help the drivers shag cans and throw trash in the back of a rear loader, and then they went side loader, and I still helped them. And then when I was 15 or 16, I would bike around the town, and I would always, I knew where every driver was supposed to be. I knew their route, and on certain days I'd meet up with certain drivers and, basically shag cans for them, pull them out and then push them back in so that way they can go on the route faster. And then in the West Coast thing, you always have outside controls because we have so many pullouts. So by the time I was 15 or 16, I knew how to proficiently operate a front loader. Not drive, but I could, I knew all, some of the tips or tricks for bringing the can up and down. When I was 18, I joined the Oregon Air National Guard with the intent of going to school and becoming a mechanical engineer because I wanted to design garbage trucks. But I ended up falling in love with what I was doing in the military, never pursued that, but I had the opportunity when I was 21 in 2006 to get a job up in Portland for a commercial-only waste hauler that just ran front load and roll-off. All I had to do is just get my CDL permit, and they trained me for 3-4 months with drivers, and then they let me use one of their trucks for the test, and then after that, I was off and running in early 2007. So I worked for that company called AGG Enterprises in Portland, Oregon. I knew all the routes, and because I loved what I was doing, I had all the routes memorized. I helped them reroute stuff because my brain kind of works differently in terms of like the heuristics of how you should route stuff. What's interesting about Portland is they don't have any alleys. Like, alleys aren't a thing in Portland. So if you've ever heard of I think it was called the China tunnels in Portland. Basically, there's a lot of, back in the 1800s, Portland was a big port town for importing Chinese nationals to basically work in the different trades that we had there. And there was actually an underground slave system, kind of, where they would bring the Chinese people in undercover, and there's this whole network of tunnels underneath the downtown Portland, and you can still go see them today. They have tours and whatnot, but because there's no alleys, a lot of the containers that we have to be specialized because they either have to fit through the standard width door, or we have a lot of elevator systems on the sidewalk. So you would go down basically underneath the building and then wheel out this little 1.5 yard container onto the elevator and bring it up. So the cardboard guy and I, we basically had mirror routes. So after we go and do our little specialized, onesie twosies here and there, we would meet up in the mornings and we started our routes at 2 a.m. Most commercial companies in Portland start their routes at 2 a.m. So I'm up at midnight every night as a 21-year-old guy. I had no nightlife, no social life, pretty much. But we'd meet up and we basically just tag team stops. And so I would pull out his containers for him and he'd dump. And then one of us would stay up top and dump the containers while the other one would load the elevator, essentially. So that was really cool. You didn't have the homeless population and all the stuff you see on the news today. Like 2020 kind of really brought that out. But you did have a lot of you did have a lot of homeless population living in Portland. One of our stops was it was a halfway house off the Burnside Bridge. And I get there at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you know, especially during the summertime, you'd have a whole bunch of homeless people sleeping on the sidewalk. And it was always in front of my container because I had this gate that was built into the wall. So I'd have to bring my container out, and I always be like, okay, move, come on, let's go. You know, I'd shine a light, and, you know, half the time they were like really cool. They're like, oh, sorry, and bring my can, a little 2-yarder out to front of my truck, and then put it back, and I'd be on my way. My favorite were Jack in the Boxes. I don't know if you guys have ever had those. So typically you'd find it with cardboard containers because, you know, it rains a lot in the Pacific Northwest. So you get people that are trying to get out of the elements, and they'd sleep in your cardboard containers because they're dry. So
Right. I get that.
yeah, so you drive in, and you'd stab the container, and you'd start lifting it up, and you get this dude that'd pop up and be like, wait! You just scare the crap out of you.
Yeah.
You know, I call them Jack in the Boxes.
Right.
So, so those were not fun.
I told the
but
story of that once.
What's that?
I've told the story of that once. I got him the window length, and he popped his head up, and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, it scared the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I didn't have casters on my container when that happened, I would have fun with them, and I would like slam the container on the ground. I'd lift it back up, I'd slam it on the ground. I'd be like, get the fuck out of my container.
We were actually told to do that.
Really?
We were actually told to pick them up and slam it down. If
Yeah.
anybody's sleeping in there, they'll get them up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But so I never had an instance of actually dumping somebody in my truck, but there were 2 drivers that I ran downtown with that did. One dude actually was running our Monday route, and he was doing garbage, and he actually dumped a guy in his container, didn't know about it, and then like the next couple stops he picked up like this construction site, so he ended up dumping like construction concrete debris on this guy, and that guy got jacked up. And then my partner who was running cardboard, he ended up dumping a guy and packing him a couple times. But thankfully, I never had you know, a guy actually in my hopper. But I have seen picked up a container and seen homeless people having sex behind it. You know, just crazy shit. I had a dude jump in my truck, just like because you get a lot of tweakers. So I've had people jump in my truck on the passenger side, and you know, like, yeah. Just crazy. During 2020, I heard most of the national guys that were running downtown, they would have a security guy ride with them because it was so bad during like 2020 with all the, you know, George Floyd riots and whatnot. I'm like, man, I'm glad I got out of there when I did. It was just crazy.
I'm definitely glad that I'm a country route person, not a city slicker.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
So ran Portland up until 2011. I met my wife. I deployed for 6 months, and I came back and decided to go full time with the military. Got a job up in Tacoma, Washington, because I needed a little bit more stability, and you know the military provided that. So we moved up there, but I still always had that itch, and there was a group of us back in 2004, 2005, back when YouTube and like the internet was, you know, social media was just coming online. You know, that was like the MySpace days, and YouTube was still an independently owned thing where you could have up to like 2-minute clip videos. But we always, you know, we were one of the first group of people to start putting videos of trash trucks online. And so I've done that. I did that for years. And then after I stopped picking up trash, I always still took pictures and videos. And, you know, we found out that my son was going to be born. So I'm like, man, I gotta, you know, kind of hits you when you're like 31, 32. You're like, crap, what am I going to do post the military? Because the military is just a job, right? Like at some point you're going to age out, and it's like, I retire here in a couple of years. But it's like, okay, what am I going to do next? Right? And so I'm like, well, maybe I can figure out a way to get paid for taking pictures and videos. So that's basically what I did. I went to the school of YouTube, and I taught myself marketing and professional videography and graphic design and stuff. And I basically started my own company and ended up becoming the marketing manager for Bridgeport Manufacturing for a couple of years. And then we parted ways, but I've done a lot of stuff for McNeilis. Haven't done anything for Heil, Wayne Manufacturing, which is now Curb Tender, but just using my contacts throughout the years with a lot of these companies to try and, you know, say, hey, I'm an option to do this. Here's my previous work, and they loved it. So
Right.
COVID kind of killed that. But now Anthony and I, we started our passion project that we've been talking about for the last 12, 14 years of actually starting a museum, and because he has stuff through his 40 years of waste experience and all the stuff that he's done. I have a lot of knowledge and stuff. I worked closely with the Waste Pro Museum down in Florida. After they got started up, I found a lot of their old trucks for them, like old Garwoods from the 50s. I found an original Heil Collectomatic from 1955 that and sold them. So I was always like, man, I want to do that for me. I want to have a physical location where I can find the trucks and we own them, and we get to choose to do what we want to do with them. And Anthony was on board, and we've seen so many trucks come up, and we don't have the opportunity to action on them, but now we do. So we've been around for about a year and a half now. We went from 0 trucks to now we have 5, and they're all old, rare, and one of a kind. So our goal is, with our association, is we care about legacy preservation, or legacy education and preservation. So we want to be able to capture the stories similar to what you guys are doing, which is, once Anthony told me about you guys, I'm like, man, we got to get on this guy's podcast and talk to him about it, because your heart is exactly where ours is capturing these stories and being able to document this stuff. So,
right. What's the website for that?
Was it?
It's wastemuseum.org.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. We're still kind of new on our website. I have my own stuff that we're probably going to convert over to it, and then a lot of the stuff we do is partnering with organizations. So there's this website. I don't know if you guys have been to it, called ClassicRefugeTrucks.com.
No.
Oh my God! You guys are living like you have. This is like finding a porn site that you've never been to before. I guarantee you. Just
like
make
the
sure.
Original Wikipedia for garbage truck manufacturers. So Eric, the guy he's basically the guy that runs it. I met him like right after it dropped in 2005. I was in England doing some work out there for the military, and I was on the internet. And granted, you got to think, 2005 internet is a hell of a lot different than the internet that we have today. Like, you have to know what websites to go to and stuff. And so I'm like just basically fucking around on the internet in the little library, the military library that they have, and I come across this website, and it's like Classic Refuge Trucks. I'm like, oh my God, this is like amazing. I immediately contact this guy. It's all like, I have this stuff. This is, have you heard about this company? I sent him a whole bunch of pictures and stuff I had, but that basically started, the 25-year relationship that we've had, and I've written articles. Not only for Eric and Classic Refuse Truck, but I actually had a column in Waste Advantage magazine for 2 or 3 years, where basically I was all like, hey, I want to write about this stuff. And they're all like, okay, it's free, we're not paying you. I'm like, I don't care. But it gets it out there, just because, nobody has this stuff. Nobody's really done that. So I'm just trying to get all the avenues of just trying to educate people, because I'm excited about this stuff. I don't know if you guys can tell, I care about, I'm excited about the history of the industry, right? Not, in some part, yes, the families and the haulers, I'm not as educated as somebody like Anthony on that. And that's where, we kind of complement each other in a lot of that. But like, you want to talk about, I will talk about garbage truck bodies all day long.
That's really good, man. And it's good to have that much knowledge of it. Like, that's
well,
awesome.
and how Zach and I kind of knew each other was, so when I was growing up into this, I used to go to the local library, and I used to rip out the old phone book ads without them not seeing. I'd have a decoy, and I'd look up, and I'd just kind of look at them as I was swiping them, and I'd go there every day for like 5-6 years, and in summer, and I would look at their phone books, and I would open up the garbage section. I'd rip out the phone book ads out of them, and I'd collect every phone book ad that they had in there for that time, till phone books started becoming not a thing. And then, of course, when I started my recycle business, that was primo, because people throw away their phone books. And then on the garbage route, my dad would save them for me. I had a grandpa that traveled all over. He'd save them for me. And I always said that one day that, this stuff would be valuable to somebody. And everybody laughed at me like, oh, yeah, right. They're just phone book ads. But like Zach said, it's history that we're never going to see. So I started this company called Garbage Guru back in 2000 because they started building first gear garbage trucks.
I'll be right back.
Replica garbage trucks up, and I used to sell them on eBay, and I did fairly well until everybody got them, and then they were selling them, and then of course it was like who could sell it the cheapest. So I wanted to replicate a garbage truck of different companies. So I got hooked up with a guy out east, and he was doing it, and I was kind of like, not real keen on the quality of it. The paint, just wasn't real like I wanted this on my own. So it took me 4 or 5 painter guys to get that. Well, in the meantime, I wanted to build this website. And so my buddy Josh Erickson, which he's actually one of our board members and a personal friend that grew up in it. He came from Waste Management. He was our swing driver that came from Winona, Minnesota. When they bought another company out, like 6 months after they bought my dad's company out, it was a mess. We lost drivers. I mean, we couldn't get guys fast enough hired, and so he came down and bailed us out on a lot of this stuff. And he had front load experience. I mean, he had 10 years on me working for Waste Management because he was already he was already in roll off, front load, rear loader, and all that stuff back then for Burgundy. Well, so him and I used to get in a car on the weekends, and we used to drive around and take pictures of old garbage trucks at these old waste haulers in Iowa that, now, thank God I did, because some of them ain't even around no more. Mm-hmm. So I decided to say, I'm going to put this website together. Well, I went to one of my buddies that was, like Zach said, back then it was different because to build a website, you had to go through hurdles to build it. And then, of course, like YouTube was a thing, but it wasn't. And so I had to figure out how to get it out there. So he laughed at me and said, well, why would I build a website for just pictures? I said, because nobody reads content. I'm a picture person. I want to see my pictures on a website so I can go and look at them. And so he was kind of messing around with me a little bit, so I said, I'm going to go find somebody else. I found somebody else that did it. They put it up there, and they started putting all these photos on. The next thing you know, my website blew up out of nowhere, and I started kind of going off that format and took off with it because I knew it was kind of working out. Well, then that's kind of when Zach started noticing who I was, and I was putting these replica trucks on there, and I got so busy. I started Garbage Guru from nothing, and it was one of the largest replica companies in the United States, well, in the world, because there was only like a couple of us that really did it, and still do that to this day.
Custom trucks.
Yeah, just custom garbage trucks. The little replicas that you see, like say Waste Management or Republic, or like the different ones. And there was a craze for them for like a short time. It was like 7 to 10 years, and then I got really busy with it, and then that's when Zach started noticing me, and then him and I were talking, and I think, who's this crazy dude from the West Coast that's freaking into this shit? I'm like, holy cow, So me and Zach started taking, knowing each other, and so then, like he said, this has been in progress like, God, for 15 years at least. We've been throwing this around like we should do some kind of a museum, but we didn't have a place to put it. It was going to cost money to do it, and then I think last year I got tired of lugging my shit around, and I said, this is it. I got to put this in somewhere. So then I pitched the idea to Zach a little bit, and he's like, yeah, let's do this. And then I went through the whole process of and getting it, done, and then got the place and did all the work up in the room. And then, of course, we needed trucks, so Zach found a couple trucks for me, and I thought he was nuts. And then when we saw, I was like, okay, I see this. This is definitely going to work. And then we got some good partners on board now, like Jesse Kilberg. He's Kilberg
Jesse's
Equipment.
been a godsend.
That guy there, I tell you, I never knew him except for I've heard his name pop up a few times when we were going out, doing demos around the state of Iowa for the dealer. And I couldn't figure out who this guy was, but I kept hearing his name, and I'm like, man, this is a serious dude. Well, I was at a Swana show set up, and we were in the process. Zach got me access to the Densky truck, which was the truck that was in the movie Kill the Irishman. Okay. And I thought, no way. So we went back and forth with Densky, and of course, that same time frame, I was talking to Jesse Kilberg at the show, and I called Zach. I said, hey, I think this guy wants to buy it. So Jesse's like, well, yeah, I'll buy it, and we'll let you guys, we'll use it for the museum and all that, because Jesse was like invested into this old stuff too. So that's kind of where we kind of made the relationship with him, and he's been, like I said, he's just been awesome to support what we're looking for. So,
Yeah, I can honestly say we would not be where we are today
yeah,
without Jesse and
Yep.
his support, which has been huge. But yeah, like Anthony says, this is 100% grassroots, movement, start, and it's Anthony has a full-time job. I have a full-time job. I lived in Oregon. I lived in Washington. Now I live in Virginia, and it's just it. Anthony's really the one that's taking this on. We would like to get to a point where, because it's hard when we go out and we talk to people, across the country. We were at Waste Expo last year. It wasn't what we wanted it to be. Because the people that we had out there, Anthony couldn't go, I couldn't go because I was in the middle of like moving my entire family, 3,000 miles east. Yeah. But, we got a lot of notice, and what we were doing out there, basically caused a stir. And we're actually going back out next year or later this year, excuse me. And we have and it's all free for us. We have we can put a truck in the entryway, the lobby area when people walk in. That's basically the same spot we had last year. Like last year, it was like last minute. Hey, if you can get out here, like we'll give you a space in the lobby and whatnot. Now that they saw how much attention that drew, they're all like, the guy that puts the show on for Waste 360 is like, I'll see if I can get you a booth too. So not only do we have the space where we can bring a truck that Labrie, the company, is actually going to pay to bring out there, but we actually have a 10 by 10 booth on the floor where we don't have to stay out in the lobby and miss the show, and we can actually be on the floor and sit and talk to people, which is cool.
What is Waste Expo really about? Is it more for a vendor showcasing, or is it more like, explain that a little bit more?
So Waste Expo, it's the premier trade show for the waste industry.
Trade show, okay.
It's gone by different names throughout the years. We have pictures that go all the way back to the 50s of trade shows, and basically what it was is exactly what you said. It was kind of like a vendor showcase where manufacturers would bring their latest, greatest trucks onto the showroom floor, and they talk, because you got to think this is like pre-internet days.
Yep.
So what it's kind of morphed into now is a lot of it of that, where it's not only just manufacturers, but anybody that touches the waste industry kind of comes to the show. So not only body manufacturers, but you have chassis manufacturers talking about their stuff. Anybody, cart company, like the toter company manufacturers, but also a lot of the nationals will come, because that's kind of, and they have all their, not vultures, but basically trade, their acquisition guys, that will sit down and talk. Like maybe you own a small company and you're like, man, I'm just not struggling. 2020 really affected me. Oh, cool. Well, hey, we'll buy you. So all the nationals are out there. Waste Management, Waste Connections, Republic. They have big booths, and they usually throw big parties. And basically, it's just a week in Vegas. So they alternate. They used to alternate between Vegas, New Orleans, and Atlanta, and then they pissed Atlanta off, and Atlanta kicked them out. So now they do 2 years in Vegas and 1 year in New Orleans. So this year it's in Vegas again, and then next year it's going to be in New Orleans, just to kind of get that east and west. Okay. But like everybody and his brother comes out there, and it's basically you walk around and you talk to people, and it's kind of like a family reunion in a lot of respects. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, if I could have another side question, what do you guys think about the bigger companies that go around doing acquisitions? Do you guys think that's a good direction that we're going in the waste industry? Or
so like out here in Iowa, for instance, I'll give you an example. And I was talking to Shawn about this. So just as a fact, just so you know, we are the only state in the United States that has the most county landfills run. With that being said, for the nationals to come in, which they're struggling right now in our state, they can't compete with the smaller guys because it's neutral dumping ground. So they can't make money off the dump fees because they have no access to that. Outside of that, like Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, are huge target areas for acquisitions. We saw it with GFL, Waste Management. They've bought, they've swapped, they've sold off. The problem with that is it's killing the service part of it, because when you get local guys gone, well, of course, then the service is gone, and then, of course, now you got driver turnover rates. The cities are mad because they're not getting picked up. So then now all of a sudden that opens up the door for new guys. But the problem is if with the landfills being owned by the nationals, it's, I don't know if these companies actually let these guys grow and then go get them after they get so big, or if it's the owners that just can't do it no more, and or the kids that had, their parents had to cover so many years and the kids don't want it. That's what happened to a big player in Chicago. The kids, they just didn't really want anything to do with it, so they sold that off to a big player, and so yeah, it's a different time right now. I've never seen so many acquisitions and mergers happen in a 3-year span like it was back in the 70s and 80s with Waste Management, BFI, SCA, and Laidlaw. Them guys, you didn't hear about.
No, I think so. I think it's a multifaceted, not problem, but you can attack it from several different ways. So from the historicity of it, so you take a place like Portland or New York, for example. Like Portland, you used to have, 400 trash companies that would operate in Portland. And a lot of it was single owner operators. They would have a open bed truck, and they go and they have their routes, and it was very family oriented. Usually it was the dad that would go out and he'd pick up the truck or pick up the trash, throw it in the back, and then his wife would, do the bills. They do the bill collecting. So, it's very one-on-one. And then in the 40s and 50s, you take pre-World War II, a lot of it is, a lot of, there's not a lot of suburban areas, right? So it's very city oriented. So in a lot of cities would pick up their own trash, right? And then after World War II and the baby boom era where everybody came back, they're all like, we need to spread out. So that caused a lot of the spike in a lot of garbage companies themselves. Yep. Not only the haulers, but also, the technology that went into the trucks. Mm-hmm. So, unions played a large part in the consolidation of stuff, right? Because a lot of guys would, compete with each other, and they're, it's a lot of it's regional. But you look at every region in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And you go, and Anthony can attest, because guess what? He has the phone books from this. You right. Go to any, major metropolitan area, right? So I'm thinking your LA area, your Portland area, your Seattle area, Salt Lake City, New York, Chicago, right? Like the phone book for garbage haulers was 4 or 5 pages long, right? And some guys, when they were starting their new company, and they got wise to the phone book, and they would start their name with A or a number, right? Because that got them to the beginning of the list, right? Yep. So you see a lot of like A1 disposal, right, or ABC disposal, right? It doesn't mean anything, but it gets you to the front of the phone book, right? And then in a lot of instances, you see just natural consolidation of companies, right? And then the stock market is what really exploded the national aspect of single giant conglomerate corporations like Waste Management, Republic, BFI, Laidlaw, SCA, like the companies Anthony mentioned. A lot of it today, so they don't necessarily care about the hauling aspect of it, because that is the most expensive aspect of anything that they do. They want to own the landfills because that's where they make their money. Right? Because when it comes to the hauling aspect, not only do you have to pay the drivers have to be somewhat competent, they have to be somewhat trained. The trucks are super expensive. Oh, yeah. And then you have the governmental aspect of a lot of the stuff that comes into the industry in terms of like the EPA, truck emissions, truck regulations, right? So that drives heavier trucks, more expensive trucks. You could buy you could buy a decent truck in the 80s for the equivalent of about $100,000 in today's money. Now,
Right.
you can't buy a truck. Like you're lucky to get a brand new truck for under $250,000
Right.
because of all the technology that's gone into it.
Yep.
And then you have the governmental regulations with all the wokeism. You've seen that a lot in New York City right now. I did a lot of work with the haulers out there. A lot of it's natural consolidation, but like the city came in because of their woke policies and they said, hey, we're going to zone New York City commercial trash. And we're going to do it in, 15 areas, and there's only a certain number of haulers per area, right? Just to try and, make it to where, you don't have trucks driving back and forth across the city and causing, emissions, right? Yep. Even though their buildings cause 80% of the pollution and the garbage trucks that are on the road is less than 1%. But they don't care because you don't see the building emissions, but you see the trucks, right? And it's a way to generate revenue through the franchise aspect of it, which is one of the big reasons why you see a lot of the municipalities get out of hauling their own trash is because they realized in the 70s and 80s that we can just do it, we can just franchise it, and that's a cash revenue stream for the city. The other big thing that happened in the 80s was the whole I'd say mid 80s to mid 90s is the big recycling boom, right? Mm-hmm. Portland was because keep Portland weird. A lot of the technology for curb sort recycling came out of Portland, and there was a lot of companies that built themselves up and started the curbside sorted recycling, which was awesome because it forced the consumer, the customer, to sort the stuff, and then they put it in individual bins. You don't see that anymore because guess what? That's expensive.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what did the Nationals do? They said, oh, we don't want to do that. We'll sort it at the MRF.
Yep.
So they gave the customers basically another bin to throw stuff in. Well, customers, a lot of them don't care.
No.
Right? So they're like, oh, I just got a second trash can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot.
But the Nationals, guess what? They own the landfills.
Yep.
So now they're picking up a mixed, commingled recycle bin.
Yep.
And, if 30% of the load is contaminated, it all goes to the landfill.
Yep.
Right.
Right? So, but they don't care, which is why, in the, 2018, 2019, when China basically said, yeah, we're not buying your stuff anymore because it's basically, you're selling us garbage, right? That's what caused all this. It was the Nationals and their single sort, their single stream recycling that caused this. Because back in the day, in the mid 80s to mid 90s, it was all sorted at the curb and the driver put it in specific bins and it was source separated.
Right.
You don't see that now. So,
definitely not.
But I can remember, so I'll tell you a story in Portland. So the transfer station was bought by a company out of San Francisco, and I'm going to try to keep names out of this. None of the people work there, and this isn't necessarily a hit on the company itself, but the people that they initially brought in to manage it. So this company came in, and previously it was managed by Republic, and their diversion rate was 11%. They came in and they said, hey, first year we can get your diversion rate up to 30% because that's what we're showing down in, that is a reasonable goal that we set for ourselves down in San Francisco. So it comes to December and I'm running a cardboard route. I'm running the downtown cardboard route at this time. And this is like 2010, into 2010. And I get a call from my boss and he's all like, hey, Ginger, I need you to take your cardboard load and not go to the recycling facility. I need you to take it to the transfer station. Tell them you have cardboard. They're gonna put it in a special bay, and you need to do that until I tell you not to. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, I'll explain it later. Well, they weren't meeting their numbers, so they're getting around it by having all their cardboard trucks go and dump the recycling load, so that way they can bump their diversion numbers up.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. So it's a political game. The waste industry has been heavily politicized. It's been heavily regulated by governmental oversight in a lot of aspects. Whereas back in the day, you had guys that it was people like you and I that, hey, I have a truck, I have my customers, and if I don't go out and do this, and the wife was helping, the kids would help, when they got home from school, because I can't put food on my table for my family.
Right.
And a lot of them consolidated. They'd help each other out. Like I can remember, Shawn, you and I were talking about turtling cans, right? If a company drive for a competitor, like I don't see competitors. I didn't see competitors when I was out there driving in Portland, right? It's like you have your stops, I have my stops, but guess what? We're still doing the same job, right? Yeah. So I can remember there was a new guy working for Waste Management, and he was driving the downtown route, and he turtled a full 4-yard metal container, and he's struggling to get this thing upright, because you got to think a full 4-yard metal container easily weighs 300 pounds on its own, right? You add trash in there, you're up to like almost half a ton, right? So I can remember I pulled over, and I went over there, and I called my buddy who was running cardboard at the time. I'm like, hey man, can you come over here and help me flip up this can up? And we went and we did it. Right, because that's what we did. We backed each other up. We helped each other out. Like there were stops that Waste Management was a big hauler in Portland, and like we had stops right next to each other. I'd set cans out for the driver. He'd set my cans out. Depending on if we got there, first or second. And it's just the camaraderie. And you see that with the drivers. You don't see that with the companies.
No.
Right.
And but back in the day, there are stories, because I used to know a lot of old timers in Portland. That's how it would be. Like you would have a competitor, maybe his truck run down, because guess what? He just has one truck, right? He's like, man, I'm screwed, right? Hey, can you? And they come back each other up, just like I hear Shawn does a lot for you, Alex. But
Here we go with the digs already, huh? Shawn's the only driver.
Just don't rage quit.
I think somebody's been watching our episodes, huh?
Hey man, I did my research. I told you, Shawn, I'd do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that's the thing. It's like you back each other up. You get the job done. That's what was most important. You get the job done. It doesn't matter if you wear green or you wear orange or whatever. That's how it was back in the day, and that's what we're missing out of the industry today, holistically, because. You get, and I'm sure, I know you guys are different because, hey, guess what? You're doing this podcast. You actually care about this industry. You care about what you're doing. This isn't just a job to you. It's passion, because you like talking to people about it. You get some people, it's all like, man, I just need a job. I guess this pays. I'm just going to do it, right? Like, it's the same drivers that, they don't give a shit about their equipment. They don't take care of their stuff, right? That's what this industry's been, reduced to. In a lot of aspects, and some of it's generational, some of it's just how the culture is, how the society is. But God help us if we ever have to go back into a time where we have to like pull up our bootstraps and go out there and actually do manual labor, right?
Oh yeah, good luck with that idea.
Yeah,
I mean, people.
A lot of drivers will complain about that.
Oh yeah.
Now there's a question that I have for you guys. So there's a lot of accidents that happen nowadays. What are some more safety things that could happen to our trucks to help us?
So it's twofold, right? Like you can put all the cameras and sensors and crap on a truck, right? That just makes it more expensive. But what is your number one preventer from accidents? It's the driver itself.
Right.
If you're not training the driver, and I actually wrote, so in the military, I actually wrote an article about this, and a couple of companies adopted it. It's called operational risk management, right? So my job in the Air Force, like not what I do now, but what my job is I'm a weapons director. So you could think of like air traffic controller type thing, right? So I'm talking to planes, but they're military planes. I'm telling them where the bad guys are. I'm painting the picture for them that they can't see because it's 200 miles downrange. But basically, I'm like the third or the fifth wingman, depending on what their flight formation is, right? But I need to know what's going on in their head, right? But I need to make sure that my mind's right. My where I'm at in my headspace is correct because, I say one wrong thing that could, potentially kill somebody, right? So every day when I'm going to work, we fill out this form called operational risk management. It's an ORM matrix. And basically it says, hey, how much sleep did you get the night before, right? Depending on how many hours that, you get so many points. What's your stress level? And I tailor this for the waste industry because it's like, to me as a driver, what am I thinking about, right? So, hey, maybe I slept like shit last night. I only got like 4 hours of sleep. But also, maybe I have a family member that's sick and that's causing a major stressor in my life. Or maybe I have some mental health issues that are going on. Or, hey, how familiar am I with this truck? Whether I'm moving from like front load to ASL, right? How familiar am I with this route, right? And there's this concept in the military called the OODA loop. It stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. And it was started by this fighter pilot in the 60s called John Boyd. And it's a concept that has gone outside the military, and a lot of businesses use it. But basically, it's basically it's the fundamental for situational awareness, right? So we're all drivers here. Right? So we go into a new area. What are we doing? We're doing our scan pattern, right? Like, okay, I'm checking my mirrors. I'm checking to see what's around me. Maybe I'm checking my backup camera. But I always try to have complete situational awareness of where I'm going, right? So maybe I'm going to a new stop, right? So I'm going to imply my OODA loop, my Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. So I'm pulling into the parking lot. Okay, where's my exit? Where's my container? If I need to back up, do I have enough space? How am I going to do that, right? But we're constantly running through this, but that isn't really taught. Not the concept itself, but more the theory behind it, right? Like how am I approaching new things, right? And when it comes to safety, a lot of it is, personal ownership of, hey, maybe I'm not 100%, ready to, there's something going on where, maybe I shouldn't be driving today because guess what? I'm driving a 20-ton, 30-ton vehicle around people, around other cars, and there should be some aspect from the companies saying, hey, maybe we'll give you, maybe I'll, as a manager, maybe I'll ride along with you today. Or something. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Anthony, what do you have?
Yeah, Anthony, we spoke yesterday a little bit about this.
Yeah,
you had some really great ideas.
The big thing that I'd like to see is with being a rear load guy for a lot of years. Like I ran it with Waste Management, did it with my mom and dad, and then you still see it to this day where rear load is still kind of a crucial thing. But it's starting to slowly fade away because you can't get guys on the back anymore because they didn't want to show up. That's a big issue in a lot of markets. Guys just show up and they quit one day because they can't handle it. Companies got to start thinking about the future of their company. I mean, if you, if you're wanting to expand, but what's holding you back is the equipment you're running, well, then you need to analyze your whole company to figure out how do I become a better company to compete with brand X or brand B because they're beating me up because they're taking contracts from me. The other thing that I'd like to see implemented, if we can figure out how we can push this, is simple technology that's been made for how many years? The radar system. Put some kind of a radar system on the back of a rear loader that's up high enough that can be pointed at a certain direction that senses density, speed, and space, and then distance, speed, and then density. So if you got a car and it knows its GPS to know what speed is in the area. So if you're on a 25-mile-an-hour road picking up garbage, you know that car, if it's driving 25 or less, it's going to chirp at you. If that thing's going 30, 35 mile an hour, it's going to belch a loud beep. That guy can at least have some time that he knows there's something coming. He could turn around and look and say, oh, shit, that car's coming pretty fast at me. He can get out of the way, and at least that way we can at least save a life from not getting hit or an injury that could put a guy in the back of the truck that's gone. he can't do the job ever again.
Yeah,
so,
rear load is the most dangerous.
It is
dangerous type of truck to drive. For that reason that Anthony outlined, right? And the other reason is rear load containers.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Like I have videos. So a lot of it is you go back to the driver aspect of it, right? So you have the locking bars on each side, right? Well, guess what? Maybe you have a driver that's like, oh man, I picked up this container, so many times. It's a 6-yard low back, and I'm gonna hook it up, but I'm not gonna anchor and lock the pin that's closest to me, right? Or the pin that's farthest away from me, right? So they flip that thing up in the air using a winch, and they're packing the container. And oh god, how many videos have we seen where it's the container flips out and because it's heavy and crushes and kills the driver, right? So
I've seen it, and I've had it happen to me. I did it I was at Waste Management, and I had that mentality for so many years, and I was dumping an 8-yarder at a school, and brought the blade down, and I half swept it because I knew it had some lumber in there, and guess what? They come off the truck and it was leaning up against the building, and ever since that incident, I'm like, that's it. Can't do that no more.
It shouldn't take you almost dying to have that realization. Experience is the best teacher. However, like make the trucks to where you have to lock it to make the winch, right? Like that's a safety feature.
Well, even the mechanical locks aren't 100% because I've seen them where you're dumping a container, a 2-yarder, and if the containers aren't spec'd right, because the guys run so many different kind of containers because they can buy them used or have them made. Nobody really knows the ANSI standard.
Maybe you bought a company and they're using something a little bit different.
Problem is, you kick that container up because you can't use chains anymore, so they use a kick bar, and all of a sudden you kick that container up, and the latch arm gets caught up on top and comes off of the latch. Next thing you know, the container comes falling off because it wasn't right. So, like Zach's saying, we need to start building these rear loaders to where they got to be just like a front loader. Front loader is one of the safest trucks that you can run without getting killed because you're dumping a container and you're knowing what's going on. At least you can see what you're doing. A rear loader, you're out there and exposed, and anything could happen.
So this might be a hot take or a point of contention, but that's why I think that the Nationals are trying to lead the industry with.
They are
doing front load ASL.
Yeah.
I mean, you still got your rear load, or your roll off, compactors that still need to get winched on there and use the rail system. But that's one of their main things of why they go that route. They're willing to spend that $250,000 on.
Yep, and they're willing to. Yeah. And the other thing too is they're willing to get rid of work if they have to because they don't want it because it's just not productive and it's not.
Yeah, the liability aspect of everything.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, but so there's a company that I was working with. They're still around called Johnny Jaws. I don't know if you guys have heard of them.
No.
At all? No. So basically, it's a system that these guys developed that so you pull off the container stop pads on your front loader, and you put this air operated locking mechanism to pick up to 4-yard rear load containers using a front loader.
Really?
But unfortunately, I love the guys to death, and they've sold quite a lot of them. But like the industry is kind of like it's very niche now than it was like if this concept had been around in the like early 2000s, late 90s, like they would have made a killing on it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to modify the truck at all, unlike the CAN system where it's a lot different. But anyway, can you guys see the screen that I showed?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my ORM daily matrix, right? So this was like the concept that I took from the military and said, hey, how can I apply this to the waste industry? So you have your green, yellow, red, right? And then basically you go through each line. So the thought process was, okay, at whatever daily meeting or pre-route thing that the company has for the driver, they make them do this, right? So it's twofold. One, the company is saying, hey, we want you to be honest with this, but two, there's also that personal responsibility from the driver saying, hey, I need to be honest about what's going on with me, and there should be some kind of no fault response if maybe you are red, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
you know, and there should be some contingencies, right? So because I don't want to send me as a manager, I don't want to send a driver out there that is has a whole bunch of shit going on in his life, and he's not concentrated on doing the best job, right?
Right.
So you just run through the list, right? I talked about sleep, right? Like sleep is the most important aspect of anything that we do. There's been studies out there that show if people get less than 5 hours of sleep, then that is the equivalent, and they're driving, that's the equivalent of them being intoxicated, right? Route knowledge, right? Like I think to me, route knowledge is a big thing. Sure, we have all these fancy gizmos and whatnot, but I've never driven a route where I didn't have a paper copy, right? And I'm trying to figure it out as I go along, right? Like that's still prevalent in the industry. So the more route knowledge you have, then you know where you're going, and you're not having to like figure things out as you're going along, right? So that should be a factor in this. Experience. How experienced are you in the particular truck and route that you're driving, right? Front load, ASL, roll off, right? Because every truck type has its quirks, right? So that should be a factor in it. Years, experience. How many years have you been driving a truck with CDL, right? Stress, personal judgment, right? Alex, I saw an episode where you guys were talking about mental health. Like that is a huge thing, right? Even though it's not necessarily affecting me, I'm married. My wife has OCD. Like a lot of stuff that she's going on. Like this last Christmas break has been, really fucking shitty for us because I have a 3-year-old, and 3 days before Christmas, he ends up choking on something, and I'm having to give my son, my 3-year-old, CPR until waiting for the paramedics to show up. Right, like that takes a mental toll on you. And then a couple days after Christmas, my wife finds out that her sister has lung cancer.
Oh no!
So just dealing with those kind of stresses, like even if you're like, no, I'm fine, I got it. As you're driving, we've all done it. You're a person alone in a truck. You're kind of your own boss, but you're driving around, and the thoughts start happening.
Oh yeah.
You're like, what am I gonna do for dinner? You're like, what's going on? And that can cause stress. And guess what? That also distracts you.
Yep.
Right.
So, and then a big part of that is how many hours have I worked in the last 5 days? Right. Like overtime. Overtime is awesome because guess what? That's more money in my pocket. Right. More money that I can provide for my family. But if you're working, you come to like hour 50. In a 5-week period, you start to get tired.
Yes.
So things like this, if it's implemented, and I think this is something that the nationals can really take a part of. And I wrote this article like 3-4 years ago, right? Okay. But just how we think about things from a driver perspective, where the management is not our enemy, right? Because how many drivers have you heard in the various Facebook groups? It's like, managers suck. Just all of them, right? I left all of them because I was like, dude, it's just a bitch fest. I don't need that kind of bullshit in my life, right? But a lot of the nationals, they look at, I'm going to hire people in management positions that have the degree. They don't have the experience. I'd rather have somebody the experience that has gone out there and done it, especially coming from a military background. If I go ask an airman hey, I need you to go do X, Y, and Z, they know I'm not doing it just to be a dick, and I'm doing it because, hey, guess what? I was the person in your shoes. I've gone and done everything that I'm asking you to do. That's the kind of, so trust is a big factor in a lot of this also.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it definitely is.
So safety, you can make the truck safer, but guess what? That bumps up the cost. The technology is great, but guess what? You're leaving out. You're not focusing on the one thing that can prevent a lot of accidents.
Right.
and that's the driver. You know, and I remember, what was it, 2009. I almost got fired for this. 2009. I'm driving in Portland. My last stop. Picked it up, going to the dump, and there's construction on the road. And I'm stopped at a red light. I got a car in front of me, and the lane to my right is closing, and some jackass just comes and zooms up, and they're going to try to cut over, right? The car in front of me, right? Well, light turns green, the car in front of me starts going, and I'm like, screw this guy. Like, we all waited for this light, and so I start rolling forward. Well, the car in the right lane, whose lane is ending, jumps in front of and cuts off the car in front of me, and I'm already rolling, and I end up, basically love tapping the car in front of me. No damage happened, but my boss came out, and I explained, like, yeah, I wasn't going to let this car in. And because of that, hey, you got to go drug test and whatnot. And, I'm almost fired because of that. Because that was me being dumb and naive. Like you ask 40-year-old Zach, hey, man, it's not worth it. Like, you're in no hurry to get anywhere, right? It's like it's noon. What are you in a rush about? Just let that car in, right? Versus 24-year-old Zach, it's all like you're like, fuck this dude, blah blah blah. It's like you're just angry all the time.
Right.
So, but the education is like the hurry up and get it done aspect of the industry. Yeah, there is some aspect of it, but a lot of it, one thing that isn't in this but should be taken into account is weather.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Definitely. Yes, for sure. Yep.
So, like there's a lot of things, and I think it needs to start from the top down, but there also needs to be, we need to make sure that the companies need to make sure that the drivers that they're putting out on the road are safe.
Right.
And they have the right mindset going out there of like, hey, you're part of this family. You're not just a number. You're not just a union worker. Like, hey, we value you. You're out there doing a job. You're making us money. We're paying you for this. To do this for us. We need to make sure that we are as safe as we can be across the board. Granted, there are always dipshits out there that are gonna make our lives a living hell. Like, some of it we control, some of it we can't control. That's why they call it an accident.
Yep.
So, I don't know. That's my take, and I'll leave it up to you guys to
It's definitely a really good take.
Give me your thoughts and feedback.
You should. Right, you should travel around and go to different divisions and talk about this, because that's
something.
That's really
that would
good.
be awesome if people if companies but
you should definitely do that, because
any of you that are in the managerial field and any of the waste companies watching this on here, definitely give this guy a shout out. You can come in and do a little safety topic on a safety meeting one day, or just do a class seminar on something for everyone to watch.
Right. And the manufacturing companies, Anthony should help you with the rear load idea, because that idea with the rear load is really
that's going to take. I think that's going to take a petition to try to get enough. And I'm not saying that rear load's a bad thing. It's just we're seeing more and more of these guys getting hit from the back, and there's no repercussion of any. Like, you got all the safety stuff for an automated, you got all the safety stuff for a front loader, roll off, but nothing for a rear loader on the back of the truck, because it's the most. I mean, when I was growing up, or and I'm sure Zach's probably heard this. I'm sure you guys probably heard this term, but rear loads were kind of like the scum of the industry, because you're the lowest paid guy. You're doing all the grunt work. The guy in the back, he's a tweaker, or he's got he's living in a box, but he shows up every day. I remember when we were running rear load for waste management, we used to get guys that come from Labor Ready. Remember Labor Ready?
Yep. Yeah. Like ready programs. Oh yeah.
So we would get. You didn't know who you were gonna get. You pop in the morning. I'm like, okay, who am I getting today? Well, we don't know. So some dude shows up with t-shirt, shorts, and shoes, and we're running 600 homes on the back of a rear loader, and it's raining out, and I'm like, you got a raincoat? No. You got rubber gloves? No. So of course, nice guy, you're like, hey, use this, and then I've had guys work part of the day and like, drop me off at the gas station. I don't want to do this no more. So then of course I'd call my boss, say I need a backup guy to help me on a route because we're an hour behind, and I have a guy that don't want to do this no more. And then you get a new guy that comes in and he's a rock star and he's got problems, but he's willing to show up, and you try to coach him like, hey, you maybe think about getting a CDL, man. You'd be a good driver, and you're a go-getter, and then all of a sudden he don't show up. It's just, and I don't know, and there's no fixing for rear loader because and I know like when I was at Waste Management, we didn't run two guys on a truck. It was all one man, and it was all stick shift.
That's how it is out here. Well, I don't know about the stick shift, but
back then I remember this was 95, so there was no really in order at Waste Management, in order to get a automatic, you had to have seniority because those were the nicer trucks. They were the newer trucks.
right.
So with us being an acquisition, they always gave us hand-me-downs, and so we used to run two guys on a truck with my dad, and then also we had to run one man, and we didn't do like the bulky stuff like they do up in Rochester, New York, or Chicago, or any of them stops. That was all like bags, and if you had bulky item, you had to pay at the landfill, so we didn't get the bulky stuff like they do there. But you still had to pick up 4 or 5 cans of house or 15 bags or whatever there, and you loaded it up yourself. But back then we had stick shifts, 25-yard Mac. You had to walk back or park the truck in the middle of the block and drag 2 cans from the front, drag 2 cans from the back, and meet up in the middle and dump them, and then do it. And you did that for 12 hours.
They also walked to school in the snow uphill.
Yeah.
Both
Coming from one guy. All right, yep, I see how it works. My body. I mean, the ideal route for a one-man route to me, if you're doing a rear loader, would be about 300 to 400 homes by yourself in a not a spread out route, but a dense route. Maybe a few commercial cans and a little bit of rural. That's perfect. That's a 10-hour day.
Now, in my honest opinion, I think in the next 50 years here in America, I think we're going to be probably phasing out rear loads.
I think it's coming. It's just the problem is these cities. And this is something I talk to drivers, doing demos on the road. We've discussed this same thing. The cities are changing because people own more cars. The streets are being taken over by cars. They're not building residential neighborhoods like they should, so then they build them so the trucks can't turn in them, and here's what I think's going to happen, and Zach can maybe vouch for this for me on this, because this is something we're starting to see more and more kind of trickle down in, but I see commercial side loaders becoming a thing again, and I think they're going to become a hard thing in big markets where you're going down these alleys where these drivers have to roll these containers out in front of the truck. I see these commercial side loaders becoming a thing, and they're going to be more advanced where a driver just hits a button and goes up, picks it up, drops it back down, and puts it back. I just see more of that because like the big players are trying to phase out the rear loaders, but like in Chicago, they can't phase them out downtown because the alleys are so tight, and you got wires. You can't run a front loader in some of them alleys down there.
I mean, I think rear loader has its place, right? You look at the under CDL market; that is huge for rear loaders, right? But you look, a lot of people. So rear loaders are good for 3 things. One, it's an easy entry into the market, especially under CDL. And
that's another hot topic too. That's becoming a big thing.
Those are, they have their places because, especially, going back to the government regulations. Like, there's a lot of places where you can't take a big full-size 25-yard rear loader into it, right? But you have to do the under CDL option. Number 2 is rear loaders are good because they are high compaction.
Yep.
Right? Because you basically have 2 blades that are squeezing the trash from both sides, so they're good for recycling. Yep. I can see them, if they're set up correctly, being really good for like a commercial recycling route. They're also good for bulk, right? Right. It's really hard to do bulk in an automated truck. It's really hard to do bulk in a front loader without screwing everything else up, Right? So they do have their place. I don't see them going away in the next 50 years. I see them becoming more of a specialized niche truck.
Right.
More than anything.
Yeah,
right?
I could see that.
Makes sense. Because
The under CDLs, I think, will be a big thing because the dry. Well, you guys are probably seeing it at where you work at, where
we got a company out here that does it.
you can't get drivers to drive these big trucks. They're just. But you can hire a college kid or a regular average Joe guy that has a license. He'll hop in that truck and go work because it's small and it's easy to maneuver. And I think that's going to be another trend. We're seeing it now. You're seeing more and more of these little trucks becoming a thing again for some reason.
And they even make little 15-yard little side loads that are automated now.
Yep, that's going to be
coming out of the Asian market.
Yeah. Well, and there's two manufacturers that are building them right now, and they're jumping on it hard right now because they're seeing it, and it's nice to see those manufacturers try to get into the trend. The other four that are the big players, they're not into that because they don't need that because they're after the national market and the municipal market. So.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing a lot with the body manufacturers now, especially with the consolidation, is it's hard to find a company that will build niche trucks. Like back in the day, like you could go to a company like Heil or Leach, and you could be like, hey, custom spec trucks, right? A lot of the manufacturers today, all they care about is that national market, getting their truck quota for that. And unfortunately, a lot of their orders, like they're 2-3 years ahead that they're already ordering trucks and getting chassis.
That and its production too. They don't want to screw up that line by adding a custom truck in there because then it screws up the whole thing. So a lot of them don't mess with it because of the production of these trucks. They don't want it. So that's where Zach said, that's where these new startup companies come around and then they grow into the market, and which is good. There's nothing wrong with niche companies building niche stuff because there is a need for it.
That is very true. I mean, and like you said, they're still needed for rear loads and certain things. I think that's the biggest thing is that it's a low entry cost point for a lot of mom and pop companies to get started off. They'll buy a rear load versus getting an ASL front load or Carrata can for the front load, so on and so forth. It's just kind of like once things become probably a little more cheaper to manufacture, a little more ease of market. You see a lot of these ASLs when they're retired, they're pretty much shot. You can't really spend a lot of money to, you buy a used Labrie arm, you're going to obviously have hydraulic issues, you're going to have electrical issues because there's just so much that goes into these trucks that once you get them used, they're just not really any good. But you buy a used rear load for $50,000, you can start your company tomorrow. And keep rolling down the road. Right. But I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting market, and a lot of people are talking about these electric ones coming out now. Like I think McNeil has showcased recently an all-electric garbage truck now. And people are up in the air about that one, because you see all these cars like Teslas and other things that catch fire because, the batteries and everything. That's what they're worried about in colder environments. Are those trucks going to actually make it through someplace in like New York or Maine where, you're getting down to 13 degrees? How long is that truck going to operate for?
Right. It's so funny.
Yeah, I know McNeil is supposed to put out 100 of those trucks to one company, committed to 100 of them. And then here's the other thing too, that's an Oshkosh chassis. So they're building their own chassis. So think about that, for instance. That goes back to the IFL, the crane carrier, where the integrated front loader and integrated rear loader, where you got a chassis bay and then load, same thing, integrated truck. McNeilus is kind of looking at that too, like, hey, we can build our own stuff because we build our own concrete mixers. So they're not dumb by not looking at that because they don't have to rely on somebody else's line to finish out what they want to do. So they're actually pretty smart about how they went about it. Think about that. Now they got a front loader now that they're electric front loader. That they just released, I saw. So it's going to be, like you said, there's so many different angles with this, and nobody has an answer on it. But we get asked all the time when we go demo. We got the revamp. It's electric body side loader. We can put on a CNG chassis, LNG, whatever chassis it is. It can go on anything. But the question gets asked is, what's it doing 30 below weather? Like out here in Iowa, we get really cold out here. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, we get really cold. But what's kind of weird is there's other parts of the country now that's never been cold that you're starting to see it. So these manufacturers are going to have to start paying attention to that, because you might be building a truck that's, like they put, when these manufacturers build these, they put certain hydraulic fluid in them for the climate. But then you take it up to a colder climate, you might have to change that. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. These manufacturers are going to start paying attention to the climate changes, because it is, we're getting into hotter seasons. So, like you said, is the electric battery going to hold up on hot climates? Is it going to hold up on cold climates? Nobody knows.
Right.
Well, and also you have to. All right,
they don't like electric. I talked to them yesterday.
I'm not a.
Yeah, you touched it.
So okay, so
good. Red button.
Okay, so let's go back to the why everybody's going electric, or what's the big push, right? Like, a lot of it has to do with the administration, right? I think, but also look at, okay, who is actually building the chassis for the electric bodies, right? BYD, right? So Curb Tender put together their hammer pack with a BYD chassis. They sold it to a company in California. They don't use that truck, right? But it made headlines, and it's the political aspect of everything, right?
Yep.
Our infrastructure for electric is not set up to have everybody go electric, right? Look at what's going on in California. Everybody's buying Teslas, right? You have you get a tax write-off, you get a tax break. Buy an electric truck. That's what a lot of companies are looking for. So, some of it is the political. Hey, I made headlines. Look at me, right? Like, look at what we're doing. We're green. And then they never use the truck, right? Because the infrastructure isn't set up. The cost isn't there. We don't have a national infrastructure to where we can have everybody go electric. Right. We have to still maintain fossil fuels because they're cheap. And I think, especially with the new administration coming in, you're going to see a movement away from the electric aspect of everything, because, one, China produces a lot of the electric stuff that we see when it comes to chassis, when it comes to batteries. Maybe there's a movement towards the mining of a lot of the stuff that goes into the batteries themselves, but they're still expensive. They don't last that long. Why? Do you know why we have automated side loaders?
I don't know where they originally started, no.
No? So they originally started in the late 60s in Scottsdale, Arizona, where you had 115-degree days. And it was all manual loaded via the train system. And I can send you pictures for that. But, they couldn't keep workers. It was hot conditions, and they wanted to keep drivers inside of a air-cooled cab, right? So a lot of the technology jumps that we see are birthed out of necessity, not government regulations, not because it's nice and it's shiny and we want to be clean, and climate change and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, the climate's changing. But anyway, so I think we're going to see a move away. It's very dog and pony, hey, look at us, right? CNG, I actually agree with CNG. It makes the truck chassis heavier, and there's a lot of technology that goes into it. Even diesel with the DFP systems. Like, I can remember driving a non-DFP system to a DFP system. I had a Peterbilt with the DFP system behind me. Is like that completely. This is a Peterbilt 320, so I had no visibility off my 3-4 o'clock. I can't look out the window because I got this DFP system in there. And then you got DFP fuel, the liquid that you have to put into it to make it clean burning, and that lowers the efficiency and the operability of it. But, I take CNG over like a DFP system any day of the week, because CNG is actually renewable, because they get a lot of the CNG from fracking, but also a lot of the landfills, they can harvest that LNG and that CNG from the landfills.
The only problem I got with CNGs is, though, at least with the trucks we had, because we had a couple Max CNGs, we still have some of our roll-offs are CNG. It's just you just can't downshift them at all. If they're automatic, you can downshift them, but there's no Jake brake system for them, no exhaust brake for them to actually slow down hills. So you're just constantly riding your foot brake the entire time. And where we're at, we're in between 7 lakes. So it's nothing but valleys and hills, and then as soon as you hit them hills, if you're going at speed, you gotta just rely on your foot brake, and then of course that's gonna burn up too fast, especially if you don't have a seasoned driver, or bad weather. You're always getting into these trouble spots. But and I understand the reason why they can't do Jake brakes and that kind of normal diesel compression that they would do for exhaust brakes and stuff to raise the RPMs, because how they compress the gas, they can't operate that same way.
Yeah.
But in flatter areas where we're doing city work, or we're just doing, townships and stuff, where you're doing residential areas and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine. It's cleaner burning.
Like every truck type has its place in fuel type, right? Like, I want to drive a diesel with Jake brake in those hilly areas, and that's where it comes back to, hey, the company buying the truck for the specific route and everything, right? But then again, you got a lot of the consolidation and the acquisition. So it's like, hey, Alex, take this truck out. Why? Well, it's the truck that we have, and we don't have any other truck for you, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the problem with our CNG fleet. It was a big push to get a CNG line going. This is before I came on board, apparently, for a while. And these trucks were, aged by 5 to 10 years. But the company was like, "Oh, we're going green. Look at us, guys. We got all this CNG line put in now." And that was like a big advertising campaign for it. And they just had, unfortunately, stuck around for so long that they just wore out. And we finally, thankfully, have been seeing every couple of years we get a few new trucks here and there. And we're phasing them out a little bit. We still have some CNGs, but we're not as many as we used to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, in the 60s, propane was the CNG back then.
Yep.
So you saw a lot of propane-driven trucks, and you can actually still find propane trucks.
Yep.
So like going back to the historicity of all this stuff, like, there's nothing new under the sun. Like, all this stuff has been tried before. It's just same flavor, different name.
Right.
Now there is one invention I want invented for anyone that drives commercial. I want a system that will clean my damn mirrors while I'm driving down the dang road. A wiper system like I get for my windshields. I want a roller wheel with a blade. And
I said the same thing. They need to have that on the window.
It's called a squeegee and elbow grease.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that when I'm driving right hand down the road, 50 miles an hour, and I got road spray hitting my freaking mirror. I can't see traffic.
Mac chassis were the worst at that, especially the old school Mac chassis, the MRs.
Well,
I hated that.
No, all the new ones still do it too. They ain't figured that out. Autocar finally figured it out. Battle figured it out. They all figured it out except Mac. I mean, I don't know if it's just the way that the Macs are built. It's that they get all that underneath wind. But I talked to a Mac guy about it that he was dealer for it, and he said that's their biggest complaint is they get that all the time. So what they do is UPS uses those bristles, and they said that's what they use, and they work still, but you still get the road grime. Yeah, it's aggravating when you're going down the interstate and you're going down one way, and you can't see out of one mirror, but then you go out the other way and you can't see out of the other one, and you're like, okay, I'm taking it.
Well, especially when you're operating at night or early in the morning, like that was those 2 a.m. routes in Portland. That stuff sucked. That's why I was all like, that's why you wanted a shagger with you, so that way you could adjust your mirrors and wipe them off, But hell, even cameras wouldn't fix that because the grime would be like, how many backup cameras are so prevalent now? It's like you throw the backup camera and it's been snowing or raining or whatever, and you're just like, oh, I can't see shit out of this. So it's like old school mirrors. I'm always all like, how can you back up with?
Well, they used to have motorized.
And I'm all like, mirrors. I'm a CDL driver.
Well, see, they used to have motorized backup cameras until I think we were one of the first sites at Waste Management to try them, and we were all skeptical about it because in the wintertime, if you don't back up a lot, if you're like running a rear loader or whatever, like front loader, you're backing them all the time. But one thing we said was, well, what happens if these things sit at night? Well, guess what? They burnt the motor up in it. So they ripped them off and never ordered them again. Right. So, And then the other thing with the CNG thing, I was telling Shawn about this, is there's an advantage to CNG. Like in really cold climates, you don't have to worry about the trucks gelling up.
Yeah.
You just go. And that,
even hot and cold climates, like that's where piston pumps really shine.
Yep.
Especially in like the Arizona, the southern Arizona market. Piston pumps are great because you go your traditional vane pump, the oil heats up so much.
Yeah.
Same with cold climates. That's where piston pumps really shine. It's just getting the manufacturers to see. I can't build. There's no baby bed. Baby bear bed for everybody. It's like, oh, it's just right. Going back to the Goldilocks. This is like sometimes you need a Papa Bear bed. Sometimes you need a Mama Bear bed because it's a little soft. Like you can't build a one truck
fits all
for every region and climate because we're all different.
Right. Yeah. So Alex, you have to step away, right?
Yep, I actually have a couple things going on, so I'm going to probably dip out here in a little bit, guys, but It was great meeting you guys. Zach, I want to say thank you for your service, man. Appreciate you. Anthony, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yep, you too.
I definitely will look more into your guys' museum ideas, and it's been really good talking to some, garbage man historians about, some trucks and everything. It's been really fun.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate all you guys.
What we can do is we can actually end it here, and if you guys want to come back individually or whatever, you guys can definitely come back. And we'd love to have you guys on. I know you guys got tons of stories you guys want to get out there for us. So, I mean, if you guys want to, just go book. You guys still have the, you guys still have the calendar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go book some more appointments with us. We'll definitely have you on every time you guys come
I don't know if we're getting Zach back. I kind of insulted Bridgeport on him.
Yeah.
I didn't need help cleaning up my route like some people.
Sometimes you just need that little extra help and push.
Maybe if you shaved your mustache or your beard, trimmed it a little bit.
The only reason why I grew this thing out like I did is because I'm a trash man. Any other place I worked for, I could never grow one out. So I'm like,
and it also makes you look older. Gives you a distinguished look.
I'm like 50 years old apparently, right?
Yeah. I mean, even though you're like what? Even though you're like what? 34, 35?
36, thank you, but yeah.
In second grade that would have really mattered.
Everything I said, taking that back right now.
All that nice stuff.
This podcast is stupid.
Well, I agree with you there.
Whoa, yeah. Alex,
I couldn't even get Shawn to wear a freaking uniform today. He had to come showing off his pecs.
Alex, you're fired.
That's okay.
You can't fire me.
He can't grow a mustache. I mean, that's probably 3 weeks worth of growth right there, Shawn?
3 months. What are you talking about? That's 3 months.
Well, that's because you're a city boy,
Yeah, I'm a city boy. City boys don't grow mustaches. It gets in the way when we're shooting guns.
No, but I mean, absolutely. Because Shawn has all your guys' links. When we post this, we'll share all your guys' resources and stuff. And I might plug you a little more, Zach, about your ideas about the diagram you showed earlier.
Absolutely, man. Hell, we can make this a regular thing. I mean, shit. Between the both of us, Anthony and I, have so many stories and stuff, things that we can share. I mean, like, shit, we can make this a weekly thing if you guys want. Like, I have no issue with that. If you guys, so Anthony and I were talking with what your vision is for like capturing stories and whatnot. If you guys want to come out to Waste Expo, we have a booth. And one of the things that Anthony and I were talking about is, since we're about legacy and preservation, we want to, like, sometimes, if an old timer comes in there, but he wants to share his story at our booth at Waste Expo. Like, instead of like waiting, after the show's over, like maybe we can have a time or space in the booth where somebody can come and, like you guys can like interview him and like capture his story. Right. So that way we have it. Right. So if you guys have time and availability, like we'd love to invite you guys out to come and join us at our Waste Expo booth.
All right. Yeah, no, definitely. We'll check into that.
Okay. Definitely. It's definitely a really good idea too.
Yeah, because I mean, like Anthony and I, like we're really good in our niche stuff, but like having the more the merrier.
I'll tell you what, you guys blow us up on social media to get us to like 100,000 subscribers, and we get monetized. We'll quit tomorrow and come right now. You guys are big influencers, right?
No. But then again, I don't have the beard that you have. Like this is the most I can grow my mustache in the military.
I was going by the handle, Trash Viking at one point, but we kind of did away with that a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, maybe if you shaved your head. I mean, your hairline is kind of receding, so
it happens.
It's okay.
When I
Mine
meet you
is- mine is
tomorrow,
too.
bro, you're dead. Oh wait, I'll never see you because you don't come in on time. So
Whoa. Damn. I'm not even picking on you. What the heck? I'm just
No,
sitting
but
over
How-
your
how-
face.
how-
Face,
would
man.
they
It's
know
your
your
face, man.
secret?
It just makes me want to put one of these in the sink. Can you fix your face?
Like, Sean, you
See,
tell all
Alex
my
is getting
secrets
picked
again?
on and he can't go back at Zach, so he's got to come at me.
It's okay.
Well, you're the host. Of course, I can't take
What
him.
did I teach you, Alex?
I'm not
I didn't teach
attacking
you
my
to be a
guest.
punk?
Like, you know, I want him to come back. I don't want to, sit here and ostracize people. But my host, you don't need him.
This has definitely been a fun time and very
yeah.
educational too, as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you guys want to come back on, Alex, you want to say goodbye to everybody?
No,
Oh,
yeah,
you.
yeah.
See you
I
guys.
like the guys' stories. Appreciate everything. Peace out.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So you.